Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Church on the Move. Great to see all of you guys this morning, whether you're here in this room, watching online, maybe you're out in our lobby, or you're out at Glenpool. What's up, everybody out at Glenpool? Great to have you guys this weekend. We are wrapping up part 4 of this series that we've been in called What to Do When You Don't Know What to Do. And it doesn't matter who you are, where you've come from, where you're going in life. Every single one of us face decisions where the right choice isn't always obvious. Sometimes we like to think that maybe we could categorize most of the choices in our life by asking just the question, is it right or is it wrong? But so many of the choices, in fact, I would argue that most of the choices that you're going to make in your life don't fit inside the is it right or is it wrong category. That some of the choices, they can't be defined by just asking, is it morally right or wrong for me to do this? Most of the choices won't fit there. So when it comes to effective decision making, we need something more than just morality to make good decisions. We need something more than just smarts, a high IQ to make good decisions. We need something more. What we need is wisdom. Because so many of life's decisions just don't fit in the moral categories. And so many of you, you're facing decisions like this. Decisions like, should we sell our house? Should we buy a new house? Should we move into that house? Or what should we sell our house for? Should we have another child? Should we adopt a child? What about decisions that you make when it comes to elderly parents? Some of you, your parents are getting up there in age and you're trying to figure out what you're going to do for them, how you're going to take care of them, and how does that relate with your siblings, and how do they feel about it, and what are they going to pitch in, and are you going to be the responsible one, or how's all this going to work, and all that kind of stuff that just comes into play with so many of life's decisions that just, again, they don't fit in the moral categories. And whether you're sitting here today facing a decision like this right now or not, all of us face these kinds of decisions regularly, and what we need is something more than just morality, something more than just smarts. What we need is wisdom. And as we've looked through this series, what we've been saying is this, that wisdom is being good at life. This is how we've kind of defined wisdom, that there are certain people who are good at aspects of life, they're good at parts of life. Some people are really great at making money, some people have a big reputation, some people have a lot of power and influence, but not everybody. In fact, most people aren't good at life, the important stuff of life, that stuff that, when you lay your head on the pillow at night and there's that sense of deep satisfaction, that sense of that everything is right in your world. When you have that, that's one of the important things of life. When you're thinking about the important relationships with your family, relationships with your kids, with your spouse, the people who mean the most to you, what's the health of those relationships like? When you think about those things, those are the questions that you have to ask yourself. Am I good at life? And wisdom is this ability to be good not just at aspects of life, not just parts of life, but to be good at the important stuff of life. All the things of life that come together to make for a happy and successful and satisfied life. And so this is what we've been looking at, is how do you become wise? How do you make wise decisions? And last week we looked at this huge principle that has just an incredible implications as to the kinds of decisions that we make. And it's this, that your decisions don't just affect the here and the now. The outcomes of your decisions aren't just immediate, but that they set you on a course. They put you on a trajectory. In fact, we said it like this, and maybe you remember this little rhyme that we came up with for last week. It goes like this: the choices we make are like roads that we take. Some lead to life and some lead to death. The choices we make are like roads or paths that we take. Some lead to life and some lead to death. And here's what we found, is that our choices are leading us somewhere. Your choices are leading you somewhere. Your choices don't just affect what you do, they affect who you become. And that's huge. When you think about that, that should change the way you make choices. Because what we should do is we should look at every choice, we should filter all of our choices through this question: who is this choice making me? Who am I becoming as a result of this decision? And so last week I gave you a couple of practical questions just to kind of determine whether or not your choices were leading you down a good path, a path towards life, or a path towards death. And I gave you a couple of practical questions that you could just kind of filter all of your decisions through. The first one was this: can it wait? Can it wait? Can that financial decision that you're working on right now, can it wait? Can that relationship wait? Here's what I've noticed, and you may have noticed this too, That so many of the times when we get ourselves into trouble, so much of the time when we make bad decisions, it's because we've made decisions that can't wait. We have to jump into it now. We have to go now. We have to spend that money now. I have to get in that relationship now. It has to be right now. It can't wait. And what I've found is that when I can't wait on a decision, it's usually a bad decision. Some of you might be in a relationship issue, right now where somebody around you is just saying, hey, you might need to push pause on this, or you might be feeling like you need to push pause, but the person that you're in the relationship with feels like, no, this can't wait. We've got to push forward on this. We've got to move forward. Now is the time. Or maybe it's a financial decision where it's like you want this thing so bad, and maybe someone around you is saying, hey, you might just push pause. You might just wait, and it can't wait. Chances are, if it can't wait, it's not a good decision. So that was the first question that we kind of looked at last week. Is this a filter for all of your decisions, all of your opportunities, every invitation that you get, filtering all of those things through that question? Can it wait? The second one is this: is it good for we, not just good for me? Is it good for we, not just good for me? Again, so often the bad decisions that we make, they're centered on us. It's for our own pleasure, our own desires, the things we want. We choose us first. And so often we make choices that we think are good for us but hurt the people around us. And what we realized last week was this: that the good choices in life aren't just good for you, but they're good for the people around you. And if you want to make good, wise choices, the wise decision will always be the one that's good for both you and the people around you, not just good for you. So when you're asking, is this the right decision or the wrong decision, one of the things that you can use as a filter is just to ask yourself, okay, is it good for we, or is this just good for me? So last week we started to kind of try and get this in really practical terms so that you could just begin filtering your decisions through all of this. And I want to continue that theme this week by looking at what I think is maybe the most critical factor when it comes to making wise decisions. In fact, this is a factor that so many of us, we have a tendency to ignore, we have a tendency to overlook, to just jump right past, to kind of skip right past, because remember what I said last week is this: no one can lie to you better than you can lie to yourself. You can talk yourself into or out of just about anything. You know that to be true. And so this is one of those factors that we have a tendency to overlook, to skip right past and just move right beyond it. But this is a huge factor when it comes to making wise decisions. And we kind of come to this, we kind of get a taste of this or an idea of what this is all about when we read in Ecclesiastes. Solomon, if you've been tracking with us for the past 3 weeks or so, you know that we've been looking at words written by Solomon. Solomon was this wise king. He was the third king in Israel's history, and he was said to be the wisest man who ever lived. In fact, other kings and queens and people of influence would send their wise people to Solomon so that they could learn from Solomon and his incredible wisdom. And he wrote this book of Proverbs, which, anybody still reading through the book of Proverbs one chapter a day? Many of you, awesome. Well, we've been reading through the book of Proverbs one chapter a day. It takes you 10 minutes to do. You can jump along and join us if you'd like to. But we've been reading through that. That was written by Solomon, and it was written as a manual for young people who wanted to become wise. And so Solomon wrote Proverbs, but at the end of his life, he wrote this book called Ecclesiastes. And Ecclesiastes is kind of reflections on all the decisions that Solomon had made in his life. And it's kind of written from this cynical place. One of the things that I've noticed is that the older you get, sometimes you see things with more clarity. You see things as they really are. And Solomon, he's at the end of his life, and he's looking back on all the decisions that he's made, and he's looking at them with kind of a cynical eye. And so maybe you're here and you'd say, you're kind of cynical. You kind of have a cynical outlook. Maybe somebody's told you that, or you just feel that way, or maybe you're cynical about church. Solomon was too. So you ought to read the book of Ecclesiastes just to kind of see where he was coming from. But in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, he writes this really beautiful, it's just a really beautiful section of verses that are, it's like this poetry. And in fact, it was turned into a song by the Byrds. You may know the song, Turn, 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 to everything there's a season and a time. Solomon wrote that. Those were words that he wrote. And those come from Ecclesiastes chapter 3. We'll take a look at it if you're following along on your smartphone, iPad, whatever you got a Bible. We're going to look at Ecclesiastes chapter 3 and verses 1 and through, it's like 1 through 5, something like that. So here we go, Ecclesiastes chapter 1. Here we go. There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. Solomon's laying this out for us. It's this huge principle. There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. In other words, he's saying that time, every aspect, every part of your life fits into a certain time slot, a right timing. There's a timing for everything. And then he says this, look, he goes on to kind of just lay it all out for us in this really poetic, beautiful way. He says, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build. And then I'm just waiting for like the 12-string Rickenbacker to kick in and we can all sing turn, turn, turn together. It's beautiful. Okay, next. A time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up. And this is a verse for a few of you today that have some pack rat problems. A time to keep and a time to throw away. Get rid of some of the junk in your garage, people. A time to throw away. Okay, just a side note there. A time to tear down, or a time to tear and a time to mend. A time to be silent and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. He lays this out in such a beautiful way. It's just there's a time for every aspect, every factor, every season of life. There's a timing for certain things, that life fits into this grid of getting the right time. Timing is huge, and when it comes to making wise decisions, time might be the most important factor when it comes to making wise decisions. I laid it out in an equation form so that you could kind of understand it. Maybe this would lock in your brain today as we kind of look at this whole idea. And it goes like this. It's like a little math equation. The right decision plus the wrong time equals a wrong decision. The right decision at the wrong time equals a wrong decision. You can do the right thing with the right intentions and just do it at the wrong time and still have a bad outcome. Timing is that important when it comes to wise decision making. I love how Solomon put it in this verse in Proverbs. He just kind of gives us this little idea of how this works. This is actually really funny. He says this in Proverbs 27:14. It just says this: a loud and cheerful greeting early in the morning will be taken as a curse. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about because you are a total jerk until you get your coffee first thing in the morning. Anybody like that? You have to have coffee or you're just not pleasant to be around. Yeah, that's my wife as well. She's not nice to be around. There's like Heather BC, Heather AC. BC before coffee, you don't want to mess with that, Heather. After coffee, everything's okay. And I'm kind of a morning person, and so I'm just up, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? It's the right decision. I'm nice. It's just the wrong time. So the right decision with the right intentions, good intentions. Wrong time, bad decision. Bad decision. Timing is everything. If we get the timing right, we'll be well on our way to making wise decisions. And so here's what I want to do. I want to look at 3 different factors of time as it pertains to wise decision making, because some of you are facing choices right now. You need some help. You need some wisdom. You need some guidance as to which direction should I go? How should I proceed? Which way do I go? And just asking, is it right or is it wrong, isn't going to be enough for you. You need something a little bit more. You need wisdom. And so we're going to look at how to be wise with time and how to use time as a factor when it comes to making good decisions. So the first question, and I want to give you 3 questions that you can kind of filter all your decisions through when it comes to time. And here it is. It's this. The first one is this. Is it wise considering your past? Is it wise considering my past? Is it wise considering your past? Here's the deal. Your past is different than my past. Your past experience is not the same as my past experience. There's things that you've been through that I have not been through, and things I have been through that you have not been through that are going to dictate whether or not a certain decision is wise. And so often when it comes to making decisions, we don't ask, is it wise considering our past? We just ask, is it wrong? We say things like, is it wrong to borrow money? I mean, it's not wrong for me to borrow money. We justify these things to ourselves. No, it's not wrong for you to borrow money, but when you consider your past, when you consider that the last time you borrowed money and the time you borrowed money for that and the last time you put it on a credit card and the last time you put it on a credit card, that it took you forever to get that thing paid off, and so that every time you've gotten into debt, it's just been a bigger and bigger mess. When you consider your past, maybe it's not the wisest decision. It may not be wrong, but it is not wise when you consider your past. Some of you, this has to do with relationships for you because you have a tendency to jump in and out of relationships and in and out of relationships. And when you look at your past, it's just littered with one relationship after another relationship after another relationship. And here you are, kind of in between relationships, and you can see yourself jumping right into the next relationship. And the people around you are saying, maybe this isn't the best idea. And you justify it by saying, it's not wrong for me to be in a relationship. There's nothing wrong with it for me to jump into this relationship with this person. No, there's nothing wrong with it, but when you consider your past, maybe it's not wise that you jump into this relationship. For some of you, it has to do with just friendships. Because when you think about friendships that you've had in your past, when you think about some of the friends that you've hung out with for a long time, and these may be lifelong friends, but when you just think about your history with them, and you think about some of the things that you've done with them, and some of the trouble that you've got into whenever you've hung out with these people, and you'd have to be honest, you'd have to say, I've not made good decisions when I've been around them, but then you justify it by saying, well, it's not wrong for me to hang out with these people because they've been my friends for a long time, and I don't just want to throw them out, so you go and hang out with them, and you make bad decisions. Is it wrong to hang out with friends? No, there's nothing wrong with it, but considering your past, considering what's happened with these people in the past, it just may not be the wisest decision. See, for some of you, because of your past, there's certain parts of town you just don't even like driving in. You don't even like being in certain parts of our city, or maybe at certain parts of the country. Maybe you haven't been back home for a really long time because of your past. Whereas that's not a big deal for me to go in your old neighborhood or to go in your old stomping grounds. It would be a big deal for you because your past isn't my past. For some of you, it's certain kind of music. There's certain kinds of music you just don't listen to anymore, or you don't want to listen to anymore because there's nothing wrong with this music, but just hearing it brings up a lot of memories, a lot of stuff that you used to do where you'd say, I'd rather just not think about that anymore. So you just avoid that kind of thing. I might be able to listen to that song or whatever, but for you, it's a big deal. It may not be wrong for me. It may not be wrong for you, but considering your past, it's just not wise. Considering your past. For some of us, it has to do with our health. Considering our health history, what we've been told, what a doctor's told us, some of the decisions that we're making right now, we might need to change. I have a friend who's a pastor, and he was at his church a couple of weeks ago, and he saw a guy there who has had some real health problems, some heart issues. In fact, his doctor's given him some real serious advice about how he needs to eat, how he needs to live moving forward. He's had heart surgery, some pretty serious stuff. And he sees this guy in the lobby of his church, and he's eating donuts. And then after he eats a couple of donuts, he comes over and he says, hey, can I get some prayer? I'm going through something, health related. It's just crazy. Is it wrong to have a couple of donuts? No, there's nothing wrong with a couple of donuts, but considering his past, is it wise? It's not wise, considering his past. On the flip side of that, this week I was in Atlanta. And while I was in Atlanta, one of the things that I always make a point to do is to visit this pizza restaurant. There's a pizza place there that, no joke, serves the best pizza on planet Earth. I mean, it's unbelievable pizza. You wouldn't think it being in Atlanta, but I'm not kidding. If you're ever in Atlanta, just send me an email. I will tell you need to go to this pizza place. It's amazing. And so I was there for a little more than 24 hours. And in that 24 hours, I was able to eat there twice. And both times I had a whole pizza to myself. Is it wrong? No, it's not wrong. Is it wise? Well, considering the fact that I have been exercising quite a lot, and I eat healthy most days. It's not an unwise necessarily decision. We could debate about that or not, but my past isn't your past. Whereas some of you, you've been to the doctor recently, and it might not be that wise for you to make the same decision. See what I'm saying? Your past is different than my past. So what decision are you going to make considering your past experience? What decision? The second question that you have to ask yourself is this: is it wise considering your present? What's going on right now in your life? And is the decision that you're making, is it wise considering what's happening in your life right now? Because see, you just got married. And yeah, you have that job opportunity that you could take, which is going to mean you're going to have to travel and be gone 3 and 4 days a week, and it's going to pay you really well. But is it a wise choice just considering that you just got married or considering that you just had kids? Is it wise considering your present circumstances? See, there's a lot of things that aren't wrong, but when you take into account what's happening right now, they may not be wise. For some of you, it has to do with just financial choices. You know, maybe you just had kids and it's a financial choice. You know, you're going to go out and buy a boat or a sports car, and you just had kids. It's nothing wrong with having a sports car, but is it wise to buy a 2-seater car just considering you just had kids? I've done that. I had to learn this lesson. It's stupid. I know, I should have known. Like, no one ever told me you don't buy a sports car when you've just had kids, but I didn't know, so I did. And here I am. It's a stupid decision. It wasn't wise considering my present reality, what's happening right now. Here's another one. This is just something that's a personal conviction or something that we kind of hold as a staff kind of cultural conviction here at Church on the Move, something that I would just recommend that you adopt this principle because I think it's good for all of us. But considering the fact that you're married right now, it's not good for you to ride in a car with someone of the opposite sex alone. Not good to go to lunch alone with someone from the opposite sex. Just considering that you're married, is anything wrong with having a lunch with someone or a dinner with somebody who's, you know, you're not married to, who's of the opposite sex? No, there's nothing wrong with it. And that's how we justify it. Well, there's nothing wrong. We didn't do anything. But is it wise just considering that you're married now? Is that wise? It's not wise. It might not be wrong, but it's not wise. See, you can make a wreck of your life not really doing anything wrong, just not making wise decisions. So let me just give you another little piece of advice. So often, the things that happen in your life, the major, and some of you, you've been here, when you look at some of the shipwreck moments of your life where you say, man, I just totally, the whole ship went down, my life crashed hard. At a certain point in your life, when that happened, you'd have to say that the decisions that led you to that place were not wise. They might not have been wrong, but they weren't wise. And all those unwise decisions led you to a place where you were able to make a really wrong decision just because you made a lot of unwise decisions before you made that wrong decision. Some of you, it's an issue of just things that are happening in your life. Maybe you're in school and you've got a big final that's coming up. And yeah, you've always taken that trip with your friends at that time of year. And yeah, it's kind of like a tradition and you've always gone and you're really looking forward to it. But you've got this final coming up. And yeah, there's nothing wrong about going on a trip with your friends. But when you consider what's happening right now, what's coming up right now, is it wise? It's not wise. See, here's what I've noticed about wise people. Wise people understand their current season of life. Wise people know that life comes in seasons, that there are times where, you're pushing forward and times where you're pulling back, where there's times where you're in a season of discipline. I'm not talking about whipping yourself on the back or any weird stuff like that. I'm just talking about you're in a season of, financial discipline, you're saving, you're in a season of discipline health-wise or some other discipline that you're in, or maybe there's a time where it's just a season of, pushing forward, doing something new, trying something. There's seasons of transition. There's all kinds of different seasons in life. And wise people are able to define their current season and live within their current season. Some of you, you're in a season of discipline. You've been saying to yourself, you know what, we're going to buckle down. We're going to really watch our spending. And then an opportunity comes along to buy something, and you really want to buy it. And so the wrestling match begins. Well, is it really wrong? I mean, there's nothing wrong with it to buy this. I can't say that it's wrong, but when you just consider the season that you're in right now, is it wise? No, it is not wise. I wish I could say I got this right all the time. I've gotten this wrong so many times in my life. I wish I could go back and change a lot of things. Some of you, you're young and you have an opportunity to get this right the first time. What is your current season? About 4 years ago, I was in a season of just wanting to change some things about my health habits. I just kind of grown up eating whatever I wanted to eat, just whatever, junk food. I mean, I ate terribly, oven pizzas and macaroni and cheese just all the time, just kind of rotate between those two. Just horrible foods for you, terrible stuff. Never ate vegetables, didn't eat fruit, just junk. Just basically if it was brown or kind of orange, like cheesy color, that's what I ate. And that was like my whole diet all the time. And so about 4 years ago, I just decided, you know what, I got to get control of this because I want to live a healthier life. And so I decided that I was going to do P90X, which is like this ridiculously hard, thank you, this ridiculously hard, 90-day workout regimen that I was going to go on. You got to eat right, and it's hard workouts every day. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. And so I studied up on all of it, and I decided I was going to go whole hog. I was going to eat right, do the whole thing. So we get about 3 weeks in, and we're scheduled to go on vacation to Disneyland. Yeah, the land of terrible food for you, it's not easy to eat healthy there. And so I had this decision to make. Am I going to keep working out when I go to Disneyland? I mean, I'm on vacation, it's kind of the time to take off from workout, all that kind of stuff. Or am I going to eat right, or am I just going to eat what I want? Because, isn't that what vacation is for? It's like eat all the foods you ever wanted, and especially at Disney, and there's just junk food everywhere, and it's so fun. And so, what else am I going to do? So I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking, which way am I going to go? And after some thought, it kind of hit me. I'm in a season of discipline. I'm learning discipline. And I realized that I'd taken so many vacations in my life, and with all of them, I had eaten whatever I had wanted to eat, done whatever I wanted to do, and I hadn't worked out at all on any of them. What if I just took one and did it a different way? And that was my decision. So I went on vacation, and I didn't eat bad. I ate great the whole time. I allowed myself one ice cream cone the entire time I was there, and I did my workouts right there in the hotel room the entire week, kept up with the whole thing. It was miserable, but I did it. It was horrible watching everybody else eat all this other food that I could not have, but I made it through a week, and I was so glad that I did, because that choice was the catalyst that sprung me into completing that 90 days. And in fact, I've been working out like that and eating right for about the last 4 years. I changed my habits because of that 1 week's decision. Is it wrong to take off a week and eat whatever you want? No, there's nothing wrong with it, but just considering where I'm at right now, is it wise? What season are you in right now? Some of you are in a season of discipline. You're in a season of pulling back. And maybe it's not the wisest thing to make some of the decisions that you're thinking about making, just considering where you're at right now. Is it wise considering your present? And then the last question is this, and you've probably already got this one figured out. Is it wise considering your future? Is it wise considering your future? This is a really disturbing trend that we see in our country today, really all over the world, and it's this. We mortgage our future for a little bit of pleasure right now. So many of us are going into debt against our hopes and our future hopes and our future dreams just to get a little bit of what we're after right now. We're giving up so much of our future for just a little bit of pleasure right now. I heard this recently. I thought this was really, really smart when it comes to the idea of pleasure. Someone said that with all pleasure, there comes a price. You have to pay a price for any kind of pleasure. And he said, but with real pleasure, you pay the price in advance. With false pleasure, you pay it after. And you know what I've noticed? That when you pay for it after, you always pay way, way more than you should. Some of you, you've been through this. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You chose pleasure now, but the cost that was associated with that choice for right now wasn't worth it. Some of you are in financial situations that you wish you could get out of, that is crushing you. It's hurting your marriage. It's hurting your relationships. It's keeping you up at night. It's difficult for you because you made choices for pleasure right now. You mortgaged your future so you could have a little bit of pleasure right here, right now. And you're in debt up to your ears and you wish that you could get out of it. Some of you, this has to do with your health. You've deferred your health. You've said, you know what, I'm going to mortgage my future. I'm going to eat what I want right now, how I want. I'm going to live what I want to, and I'm not going to care about it. And you're not even thinking about the future consequences of some of the decisions that you're making. You're giving up your future hopes and dreams, time you could have with your kids and your family and the people who mean the most to you so you can enjoy a little bit right now. We're mortgaging our futures for a little bit of pleasure right now. Some of us, this has to do with just disciplining our kids or the lack thereof, because you don't want to discipline your kids because you're afraid it will affect your relationship with them. You're afraid they won't like you as much if you discipline your kids now. And you think that it's going to give you a great relationship with them down the road, when in fact just the opposite will happen. You're mortgaging your future relationship with your kids for a little bit of what you perceive to be pleasure right now, and it's not worth it. Some of us are mortgaging our very ability to connect with people in an intimate way, connect with a spouse in the future in an intimate way, because we're harboring this porn habit right now. And it brings us a little bit of pleasure right now, but you're sacrificing the very thing you want, which is intimacy with someone else. You're putting that at arm's length. You're pushing it further and further away. In fact, you're making yourself less capable of intimacy. Science is proving this over and over again, that porn leads to a struggle with intimacy in people. You're pushing the very thing you want most away. You're saying, I don't really care about my future. What I care about is right here, right now. I just want a little bit of pleasure right here, right now. Don't care what it costs me in the future. It's not wise. It's wrong. It's not wise considering your future. We're making decisions that are not wise right now, that are hurting us in the future. And some of you, you're dealing with this. You have this habit. It's a hidden habit of yours. You don't want to tell anybody about it because you're ashamed of it. Can I just encourage you for a second? Get it out in the open. Talk to a pastor. You don't have to stand up on the stage and tell everybody about it, but go talk to one of our pastors. We've got pastors over in the healing place after the service. We've got them in our First Steps room. We would love to walk you through this. We would love to help you out of this, but the thing you want most, you're making it so hard to get just because of what you're doing right now. So often, the decisions that we're making now are hurting us in the future. Do you know what I've noticed? God wants to do some amazing stuff in me, through me. He wants to do incredible things. And I believe He wants the same for each of you. He wants to do something amazing in you. You may have a hard time believing that right now, but I know that to be true. God wants some great things for you. And you know what I've noticed? The person who gets most in the way of that great stuff happening, you know who gets in the way of the dreams that God has for me happening? The person who wrecks it more than anybody else is me. If I could just get out of my own way, God wants to do some incredible stuff in and through me. I'm the one standing in the way. And so much of wisdom is learning how to get out of our own way and do things God's way. Because God's way is better. And as we wrap this whole series up, what I want to do is just kind of circle right back around to how we began. Wisdom is better. Look what Solomon wrote in Proverbs 16:16. He says this: get wisdom. How much better it is than gold. And get understanding, it is preferable to silver. If we could just get out of our own way and admit that God's way is better, it would be amazing what we could do. It would be amazing what would happen in our church. It would be amazing what would happen in your business. It would be amazing what would happen in your marriage. If you could just get out of your way, your own way, get out of your own way and let God do what God wants to do in your life. If you would just follow what it is that He has for you. If you just say, all right, I'm done trying it my way doesn't work, I'm going to do it God's way. If we could just own up to the fact that wisdom is better. It's better than what your mama told you. It's better than what your daddy told you. It's better than your hopes and your dreams. It's better than what you think you've experienced or what's happened in your life. It's better than any of that. Wisdom is better. And when we seek wisdom, we wind up at a place that is better. And that's my prayer for you, for me, that all of us would seek wisdom so that we could wind up in a place that's better than what we've planned for ourselves. Let me pray for you. Father, thank you so much for downloading so much truth to us, Lord. Lord, you knew that rules, regulations, all that kind of stuff isn't enough to live a successful, happy, peace-filled life. Lord, it's not enough. That's why you gave us wisdom. We need wisdom. We need something more. And Lord, you said this. You said that if we would just ask you for wisdom, that you would give it to us. Lord, on behalf of my brothers and my sisters here in this room, watching online out at Glenpool, I ask you for wisdom for all of us. Lord, we're all facing decisions, things where we need direction, where we need wisdom. Lord, give us wisdom. Speak to us so that we could know which way we should go. It's in Jesus' name. Amen. Hey, before we dismiss, maybe you're here and you would say, you know what, Whit, I have never made Jesus the Lord of my life. And in the sense that you could say it's been life-changing. That's how we define a real, authentic relationship with Jesus. There's a lot of people who in the Midwest come to church. Some of you have been baptized. Maybe you've prayed a prayer, but you could not say that it's been life-changing for you. That's how we define it. If that's you and you'd say, you know what, I've never made Jesus the Lord of my life to the extent that it's been life-changing, we have a room right over here called First Steps. And we have some pastors, some friends in there. Nothing weird's going to happen there. We just love to answer any questions that you might have, pray with you if you'd like. We're going to leave the doors open, so we're not like locking you in there or anything like that. It'll only take like 5-10 minutes. So if that's you today, maybe you've been contemplating going in there for the last several weeks, stop by there. I'm telling you, it's super chilled out in there. There's nothing weird going to happen. But we would just love to talk with you and pray with you if that's you today. And then also, don't forget, next week we're starting a new series called We Can't Stay Here. And I just got to tell you, this series, I really do believe, is perhaps the most important series in the history of our church. And I'm not just saying that because it's the next series. I'm saying that because there's some stuff that we're going to be talking about in this series that's going to set the trajectory of our church, where we're headed, what we're going to be doing. And so do not miss next week. Be here and let everybody know that is in your world that's kind of a church on the move person. Let them know. Be here as we start this series next weekend. And we're going to talk about some really, really important stuff. Hey, stand to your feet. God bless you guys. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. God bless you guys. You're dismissed.